It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee, ready to break it down a little bit and talk a little sports. How you doing there? Talking about sports, if I'm looking at one.
Oh, okay.
Super sport, Dale McKee.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're a real sport, Dale.
Is that a compliment?
That is a compliment.
Okay.
You're a sport.
Yeah, used to when we said somebody was a sport, that was that negative, but now it's positive.
I never knew it to be negative.
Okay. I'm just wondering.
Are you serious?
Sport, come here.
Is that a negative?
I don't know.
I always thought it was a term of endearment.
So you've been thinking negative things to people all your life?
No, I've been speaking. I thought it was a term of endearment.
Okay.
So sport means I like you. You're a sport. You're a good sport.
Well, you're more intelligent than I am.
I'm not. So that shows how stupid you are right off the bat.
I know that you know what you're talking about.
I've been accused of a lot of things, being smart. Ain't never been one of them.
Well, yeah, okay. There you go.
You're the smart one. You got an article.
Oh, I do?
Yeah, you're a writer.
Yeah.
Tell us about your sideline view. We're looking at, the football seasons, the schedules have come out. There's no more East and West in the SEC. What are we going to do?
We're going to take the top two, baby. Ole Miss and State are going to play the Ag Ball one day and go to the SEC the next.
Wouldn't that be something?
Oh, yeah. We got it all planned out.
Well, I tell you what, I like what's going on. I like Will Hall at Southern Mississippi in spite of the fact that they had a tough year this year. Mm-hmm. I like Lebby. I think Lebby's a good hire for Mississippi State. I'm excited about that. And Kiffin is taking Ole Miss to heights they've never been to before.
I believe.
I mean, when I saw what they have gotten out of this transfer portal in the last 48 hours, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I think one day, and because I want Ole Miss to do well, just like I do State and Southern. But I think one day you're gonna have to put a limit on maybe the transfers that you can pick up out of the portal. I really do, because right now I'm not saying it's to the highest bidder, but why are the kids getting in the transfer portal? They're either wanting to get away from a bad situation,
money,
or they're trying to better themselves financially.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was the two, and of course, I'm kind of sad that Will Rogers went to Washington, but I can understand.
Yeah.
He probably needed to move on.
Well, I'm sure Lebby would have his own quarterback, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he probably would. He's going to bring one in, but like anything else, it may take that quarterback a year to get his, footing down and all that, to where he can really play well.
Yeah.
But Ole Miss is in a situation where they got a 4-star quarterback this weekend. Maddox from Oak Grove committed to them. They got a really good kid last year out of Florida, who is a freshman at Ole Miss this year, and he'll probably be a redshirt freshman next year. So Ole Miss is almost lined up at quarterback. They got a 4 or 5-star at every class.
Yeah.
Senior class, junior class, sophomore class, because they got Dart coming back. They got the Howard kid from LSU. He'll be basically a sophomore next year. And then they'll have the redshirt freshman from Florida last year. He'll be a freshman again, and then Maddox has got 2 years to learn the rope, and he'll be a sophomore.
Yeah.
So because they'll redshirt him too, so they've got a good situation where Lebby's got to.
He's got to build a little.
He's got to build them.
Kiffin's been building. What I can't believe is how much money Ole Miss has got to be throwing at these players. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, because if you're going to compete at a top 10 level, you better be throwing some money around.
Yes.
Because it's all about the Benjamins now, baby. It may have always been, but it's on the table. Those are on top of the table dollars now instead of under the table dollars.
I just can't understand all them Texas A&M kids leaving, because they were getting pretty good money. And now, are they getting even more than that?
I imagine a couple of them. I imagine there's one that edge rusher is probably waiting to see where the most is coming from. And
Nolan.
He's still in the hunt. Ole Miss still in the hunt on that one.
Yeah, Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And that's strange, isn't it? Ole Miss is in the hunt with
Alabama and Georgia. Well, they weren't on the field this year, were they? Well, maybe with Alabama, but not Georgia.
No, and no. So
have we got a guest tonight?
We do.
Okay. Well, tell me about him. Tell us all about him.
Well, we got Hunter Dawkins. He's from down there on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. He covers the Saints, and he likes to cover a lot of Southern Miss sports.
Yeah.
And he does reach out to other, to the Ole Miss and Mississippi State. He goes to games up there, but he really concentrates on Southern Miss sports and the Saints sports.
Is he an independent journalist, or is he tied with someone?
He's really an owner and publisher of his own paper down there.
Okay.
And so we'll talk to him about that too.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor, and then Dale and I'll be back with tonight's guest, Hunter Dawkins, right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Hey, welcome to the show, Hunter Dawkins. Hunter, I was going to call you Hunk there for a minute. I'm sure you've been called that over the days. But Hunter, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. Man, they were explosive yesterday on offense, 24 points.
Well, Dale, let me tell you this, and you and Marshall too. Thank you all again. I appreciate having you guys. At least having me on and being able to talk a little bit about some ball here, which, obviously is a good thing. Going to the game, I found out that, and it's something that has been throughout the year, this is a veteran-filled football team. And this is a team that I guess to this point you would say they're underrated a little bit, but it's something that that we have in the media and that has covered the Saints all year long have really been waiting for. We've been waiting for this explosive, dynamic outpour, and I guess now they're starting to get their chemistry. They're starting to develop at the right time, and, it's all coming back. You got some Jimmy Graham. You got some Kamara starting to play a little bit better. You got some guys coming off some injuries. You got some practice squad guys like Keith Kirkwood. You got DeMario from Brandon still playing a heck of a season despite, being close to, his 10th or 11th year. You probably know better than I would, Dale. But that being said, all of those surrounding aspects are something we thought should have happened from game one, and now it's starting to develop.
All right, well, listen. Okay, so the Saints are 7-7 right now, and they're tied with Tampa Bay for first place. And the Falcons are a game behind both of them, I believe. So, as you look down the schedule, are the Saints going to be able to get to 10 wins, or are they going to be able to win that division? What's your thoughts since you see them play?
Win out, that's an obvious thing. If they win out, they're going to be able to easily win the division. Now, if they only win 2 of 3, depending on who those 2 are against, then I think they'll at least get, even if they don't win the division, they'll have a good enough record to gain a wild card spot. However, there's a lot of they've got the tiebreak on a lot of teams, at least, that are not divisional. But I'm pretty sure, Dale, to be honest with you, that neither Atlanta or Tampa Bay are going to win all 3 of their games. Nor, they don't necessarily look like on their schedule they're going to win 2 out of their 3 left. So if the Saints at least get to 2 out of 3, they should be able to no worse than get a wild card spot.
Well, this is a big game for them next Sunday, right? They go to L.A. And LA's
Thursday, yes, sir.
Thursday, and LA's really hot right now. I mean, they've kind of, got them on a little winning streak out there, and so.
Well, and the Rams too, Dale. Just to be honest with you, they're kind of like the Saints were early on in the season, except the Saints didn't exactly have the luck that LA's having now. The LA they played a lot weaker rosters and a lot. Against the Commanders, which they, should have beaten them pretty stoutly with that, that roster that they have out there, especially in SoFi. But I think it's going to be an evenly matched game on Thursday. And I think really the telltale prediction of the game is going to come down to the last series. Who can make the clutch play? What offensive or defensive team unit has got the ability to stop the other one.
All right. So looking at the other NFL divisions, you've got certain teams. You've got the Eagles and the Cowboys kind of fighting it out in the East, and the Eagles got a big game. They had one last night against Seattle. We're taping this show for Tuesday. And so then you have San Francisco in the West, who really seems like right now they've kind of gone to another level, especially with the play of their quarterback Purdy and their Christian McCaffrey, who's just a heck of a offensive weapon. And I guess in that Central you've got the Detroit Lions. So out of those teams, who would you think, in your opinion, is the strongest?
In the NFC, it's got to be the 49ers right now, because not only with their offensive unit, but with their stud defense, nobody can score more than 15, 16 points against that defensive unit, and they can easily put up 30 on anybody. You can see that when Dallas or when Philadelphia goes to play them. And Dallas and Philadelphia have two of the better NFC teams. Detroit is kind of a hit or miss. 1 week they're good, 1 week they're off. Dallas is what I call the poker team. You get the right poker card, they're going to play well. And then the next time you're going to get a low-level card, they're going to show up just looking like, where the heck is everybody at on this team? Philadelphia is questionable because it's more about Jalen, with what Jalen Hurts has got the opportunity. And, I'll just be honest with you, Dale, if the Saints end up winning the division, they get to host the first round, they're probably going to play the Cowboys. If the Cowboys don't just come out and win the division, but based on their performance on Sunday, I don't really think that they're going to be able to win that division. However, if the Saints play the Cowboys, whoever wins that game, that's a good wild card team that you don't want to face especially if you're a divisional round. But like I said, it's coming in from San Francisco right now. That's the team to beat in the NFC.
All right, okay. In the American Conference, you have Baltimore and Miami, and you have Kansas City, and you have who else is in there? I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm missing.
There's a lot of teams in the AFC that are really good, but there's not really like a San Francisco level team that obviously stands out better than anybody else. Mm-hmm. AC is good, but they kind of give a little bit. They kind of put some things here and there. Buffalo is really good, but Buffalo has some off games here or there. Miami has got some of the best talent in the game, but they're a finesse team. And, playing in the NFL, especially when you get to the playoffs, finesse doesn't exactly work. Jacksonville, Houston are both kind of medial teams. Nobody really understands if they're ready to step up to that next level. But, we'll wait and see, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, who is your prediction for the Super Bowl at this early time of the year?
I'm going I'm going to go with a little bit different. Now, earlier on, people might have predicted this, but it's either going to be, in my number one pick right now would be the Bills. However, the Ravens are looking good from the last few games. They're looking like they're stepping up, so we'll wait and see. But for right now, my pick is the Bills.
Okay. All right, let's get on to college basketball. I know you've seen some hoops. You saw some Saturday.
Absolutely.
Tell us about what your take on the Southern Golden Eagles are this year. Their big game against Ole Miss this weekend.
Well, that's going to be the telltale sign on what's going to happen for the upcoming season, in my opinion. You know, of course, Ole Miss is undefeated. They're looking pretty stout. They, first time they've been ranked in a while, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't think it's been 5 or 6 years, Dale, since they've been ranked. They're undefeated, but I know that Chris Beard knows Jay Ladner pretty well, and to know that he shouldn't underestimate a quality Southern Miss team. And the number one factor on the USM team up and coming is Andre Curbelo. He is the game changer for USM. I really think you get him in, you're going to have a team like the USM had last year, because they've been looking for that unforeseen, talent to be able to show up, because Crowley can't do everything. Hart has played well, but he's not exactly the big line, maneuver. He's a gamer. And, they've got a little bit of size down low, but not anybody that's developed Eze or anything like that yet. Mo Arnold is he's a good point guard, but he doesn't really have that it factor. Andre Curbelo, your former Big Ten, sixth man of the year, is the game changer. And the way I really am still not sure how he got away from Rick Pitino to Jay Ladner, but it happened, and he's going to be the game changer for USM and how they do the rest of the year.
How do you think USM will do in conference play once conference play? Or will they be a top-level team? I assume they got about 12, 14 teams in Sun Belt basketball.
Well, the tough thing for USM in the conference schedule is the first really 3 or 4 games. They have Georgia State, who's pretty talented, but then they have James Madison, who is supposedly the top team in Sun Belt and who's undefeated and who's ranked number 20, even though Southern did pretty well against James Madison last year. James Madison coming into Southern, I believe, in early January. I'm not exactly sure. And then they have another game against, I believe, Arkansas State, who's more talented than they were last year. Their first few games in conference play are going to be, that will tell you how they're going to perform. But after that, they generally get a somewhat easier schedule, at least going down the line. And, Coach Ladner's he's got some history in, putting together some pretty good teams around playoff time. So.
All right, listen, I'm going to ask you about 4 bowl games, okay? And you just tell me what your thoughts on them are. If you want to say a favorite in that game or one that you think will win the game, go ahead. First one's the Orange Bowl between Florida State and Georgia. Who do you? How do you see that game going?
Well, and I'll tell you this, Dale. The biggest problem, and I know that this is a whole other subject that you and Marshall probably want to get into, is the guys that are not going to play in the bowl games. For instance, for Florida State, Trey Benson. Well, it's not only that you don't have your quarterback, but your top All-American running back, who did a great job against Southern this year. I mean, not necessarily that was a big game, but, playing against a home-level team, that taking 2 of your top components out in a game against a team where you really want to try to show that, the commission should have picked us to be in the playoff. Well, without two of your top components of the team, that's just not going to happen. I predict Georgia, even with Benson, even if he did play, I'd predict Georgia because they're, minus 3 points from Nick Saban's team. They would win the national championship for the third time, in my opinion. But things happen the way they happen, and I guess you just can't wait for the 12-team playoffs next year to make these decisions. So.
All right, okay, that was the first bowl. I've got a couple others, and then Marshall's going to ask you a question. Okay. Penn State and Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl.
That's a good one. Penn State's defense versus Ole Miss's offense, that's really the telltale factor of the game. Ole Miss has got a very high productive offense, and fortunately for Ole Miss, a lot of them, on the offensive line and the receivers, and Jackson Dart coming back for another year, they've got a lot to prove. And James Franklin, is a coach that thinks really highly of himself and the team. And whether that's going to be a good factor or not, now Penn State is a good football team. They've only lost to two of the best teams in the nation, in Ohio State and Michigan, but they were handled pretty well in both of those games. And so there's not really much to see on video. But in my prediction, I think that Ole Miss, it'll be a close game in the first half, but I think Ole Miss will take care of them just because I think that James Franklin is kind of overrating his own performance, as far as from a defensive, as far as from the team perspective. But Penn State does have a pretty solid defense. However, I think Ole Miss's offense takes it to them.
Okay.
Just going to see what happens on the side of the gate.
Okay. The last question is just a 2-word answer. Okay. Predict the winner. Pick the winner of the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. Just a winner.
Okay. Rose Bowl. And I'm not necessarily the largest fan. And I know this is not the answer, but I'm just giving the explanation. It's just hard for me to believe anybody can take it to Saban when he gets in the right scenario, and I'm going to go Alabama through that for the Rose Bowl. Through the Sugar Bowl, Washington has gotten a lot of big-time play this year. That's, I haven't seen the Pac-12 have that solid a performance. But, my family's all from Texas, and, I got to throw my horns twice. So there you go. Texas for the Sugar Bowl.
All right, that is great. 2-word answers. Thank you so much. So much.
It's a nice explanation for you right there.
There you go. Okay. You meant paragraphs, right? Okay. I got you.
That's right.
I want to throw something out here about this Georgia-Florida State thing. Just a personal observation, watching teams with high aspirations and how they do when they don't live up to that. I go back to watching Alabama play several times after they didn't make it into the playoffs or weren't playing for a national championship. And I'm going to tell you, these teams like Georgia, who's won 2 in a row, had 29 games they've lost, they're not playing for anything else this year. They're done in their minds. People talking about the Georgia-Florida State matchup. I'll tell you what, I think Georgia, I can't see them getting up at all for that game. I think it's going to be a mess.
Well, Marshall, let me tell you this. Georgia, I think somewhat the opposite of that. I think Georgia sees that game and says, you know what? If we just beat the mess out of Florida State, then, especially if Alabama loses in the semifinals.
Yeah, good point.
What's the reason for not having 12 now? Because why were we not picked?
Yeah.
Of course, that's a whole other debate, too.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's some debate we won't have after next year, but the thing is, you got to look at it, and I had to agree with Greg Sankey from a certain perspective. you're not going to turn down the SEC champion, the conference that's won 17 out of the last, or has been involved in 17 out of the last 20 national championships.
Right.
And so there's no way you're going to turn down the SEC champion. Well, the problem is that if you have the SEC champion, you have to have the one team that beat the SEC champion this year.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they filled the gap with those two teams.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. I'm pulling for you. But listen, Hunter, we've come to.
I mean, it's not necessarily a factor of being right from that, but I really think that Georgia has the idea that they want to go in and just tear up Florida State, because Florida State is, obviously having a lot of smack talk about, well, we should have been here, we're undefeated. Okay, well, you're undefeated, you need to beat our defense, who's had, I guess the last 2 years, 7 first-round draft picks in the NFL. So,
Hunter, listen, we're at the end of our time tonight for this segment of our show, and I know Dale and I are thankful for you and what you bring to the Brouhaha table. You've been with us before and you're back, and we thank you, Hunter, for what you do for sports and for sharing your time with us today. We appreciate it.
Marshall, it's always great to talk with you and Dale. Y'all are two legends. I love hearing from you guys, and anything I can do for you guys, let me know.
We appreciate that. Hang on just a minute. But for right now, Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors and be back with tonight's final segment of the Brouhaha right after this commercial.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everyone, to tonight's final segment of the Brouhaha. We enjoyed our guest tonight, Hunter, and appreciate him being with us. Dale, let's talk a little bit about the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game. You were over there.
A lot of turnovers by Mississippi.
A lot of turnovers. It was a close game, 26-17, I believe.
Yes, sir.
The record in this thing, Alabama's won 26 and Mississippi 11. Mm-hmm. I was looking at that, and I got to, how many football players there are, high school football players there are in Alabama compared to Mississippi's?
A lot.
What would you guess? How many high school football players in Alabama?
I have no idea.
30, in 21, 22, there were 30,000. How many in Mississippi?
Oh, I don't know. Let me think about it. Maybe 15,000?
7,700 on that same time frame.
Really?
That's what I got off the internet. It's got to be true. But anyway, that just goes to tell you, Mississippi's got 2.9 million population. I don't know what Alabama's is, but it's probably
about 8 million.
Okay, so there's a lot more people. It's kind of funny. We're competing way out of class. Mm-hmm. That's like a 7A playing a 3A or a 1A even.
Well,
with the number of players you got to pick from.
Sure, but we played 37 games. I guarantee you, probably the first 21 or 22 were played in Alabama.
They were.
And our kids had to travel over there either to Mobile or Montgomery.
Yeah.
Now, and that has a way, because now I've lost. Let's see, I've seen the last 3 at Hattiesburg, and we've won. I've seen the last 4, and we're 2-2 in those games.
Yeah. We get them home. I just want to say, per capita, Mississippi's got more players in the NFL than anybody, if my memory serves me correctly. Sure. But when you're playing apples to apples, you got to just like. Mississippi, what I'm saying, Mississippi does very well.
They do.
Against a highly outmanned, number-wise group. But anyway, I digress. We talk about high school football. I was going to ask you this question before I get to this one. I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift? But I'm not going to ask you that question, Dale. I'm going to go on to something else.
I really have no comment.
Come on, man. Aren't you a sport? But let's go back to the change facing America's favorite sport. High school football players. We talked about how many was in Alabama, how many is in Mississippi. But now, this article that I read, they analyzed high school football participation since 2013, around the start of the concussion crisis. And it has fallen in nearly every state, high school participation in football. Only 2 states showed increases in the number of kids playing high school football since the concussion crisis. Which two states you think got more high school football players now? The only two in the United States of America has got more now than they did then.
Mississippi and Alabama.
You nailed it.
I did?
Yes, sir. Mississippi and Alabama. Mississippi has risen 20%, and Alabama has risen 18%.
Okay.
So, I mean, we ain't scared.
I guess.
What do you think about that? Why is that, you reckon?
Well, you know, you can count players on a team, you know, and a school may have 80 players, but, you know, there's probably only 30 or 40 football players.
Yeah.
But those kids just want to be part of something.
Yeah, want to be part of something.
And so, you know, that's good. You know, I think every kid, you know, that's why that, you know, locally we provide a lot of sports activities that are considered, some of them considered lifetime sports.
Yeah.
Like a volleyball or a tennis.
Golf.
Yeah. and things like that. Yeah. But then you've got your sports that, you know, church league basketball maybe, but you're going to play that for a little bit. And then, you know, you're not going to play much football, you know, unless you go to college, and very few go to college, you know, and really get a chance to play college.
Yeah. So,
you know, it's it is what it is, but, you know, I think sometime that we have some really good athletes. I saw a player from Itawamba High School this week in the Mississippi-Alabama game. And I didn't know of this. I didn't really recognize the name. And somebody said, look at this kid. He was 6'7" and 280 from Itawamba.
Rangy.
H-H-A-H-A.
A rangy 280.
Yeah. He was committed to Oklahoma.
Never heard of it, huh?
And he was running the radar, but he committed to Oklahoma a couple years ago. And so he just kind of dropped off the radar. And so, you know.
Pretty good one.
Yeah.
We're about out of time. I want to just throw this in here. We're talking about the kids and the dropping of, listen, just as a note, Mississippi and Alabama have gone up out Mississippi more than anybody. But Texas, over that same time period, has dropped 12% in their participation in high school football. So anyway, it's big in Mississippi is what I'm trying to say. Listen, Dale, we appreciate you. We appreciate our sponsor, and we appreciate all of our folks out there joining us and listening to us. We want to remind you that you can follow us, you know, during the week on our Facebook page, the Brouhaha. We have all of our shows archived for you to listen to on demand at our YouTube channel, the Brouhaha. But for now, it's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.